So boom, today we got the biggest corruption in World Cup history, and I'm not gonna lie. Do you guys feel like the World Cup shouldn't have been held in America? It's bringing a lot of fans. There's a lot of Americans loving the sport, a lot of new people reacting to it. You feel me? And we liking the culture, bro. People thought like soccer was like 6, bro. It wasn't even top 5 in America. And now, I'm not gonna lie, it might be getting into the top 5, maybe 4th or 5th, bro. People are liking it. I feel like baseball, basketball, and football are still the top 3, but this corruption thing, though, I've been seeing a lot of, like, rigging, like, even with our own team, I'm not gonna lie. Donald Trump calling up the FIFA president saying, take away red card. From what I'm hearing from y'all, bro, you're not even allowed to do that. You're not even allowed to say anything about a red card. It's not even like a yellow card. You can't say nothing about it. So the fact that he could get it reversed is pure corruption. And then Belgium did what they did, bro. I feel like that's why they did what they did. But let's get straight into the video.
Take a look at this clip. During the stoppage time of Portugal versus Croatia in the round of 32, you could clearly see that there were 10 minutes of additional time. However, it's well past 2 minutes beyond that at the 102nd minute. However, Croatia has one more chance. And like a miracle, Josko Vardiol scores an equalizer. But just as the Croatian fans are going absolutely nuts, the ruling on the play would be that the goal was actually offside. Luka Modric, 40 years old and playing what everyone assumes is his final World Cup match, along with the entire team, is in absolute disbelief. Because as Perisic crossed the ball into the box, Pasalic, the player who passed it to Vardiol, was well offside. I mean, hey, watching that live on the pitch, it looked absolutely clean. But VAR wasn't actually watching the chest control of Mario Pasalic. It was watching what happened a fraction of a second earlier, when the ball supposedly grazed Croatia's number 20, Igor Matanovic, on the side of his head. Clear offside, right? Well, not actually. In fact, some people will even argue if Matanovic touched the ball in the first place. So here's where things get controversial. The first main controversy here was, did Matanovic actually touch the ball? Because from one angle, it certainly looks like it. However, from a frontal point of view, it definitely looks questionable. However, the VAR team confirms that it was actually a touch, and they would use that as their main reason to continue this offside call. Now, how could they be so confident that he actually touched it? Well, that's because this FIFA World Cup ball, the Adidas Trianda, actually has FIFA's connected ball technology built inside it. The mechanism itself is a motion sensor chip mounted inside the ball's paneling, which according to FIFA samples data over 500 times per second, tracking the ball's acceleration and movement across 3 dimensions constantly. They simply looked at the ball's data matching up to the time of the play, ultimately determining that Igor Matanovic touched the ball. And because Mario Pasalic was already well offsides when he received it, what should have been a game-tying assist to Vardiol did indeed end up offsides. But wait, a lot of fans are pointing out that even if Matanovic touched the ball, Portugal's Renato Veiga clearly headed the ball right before it reached Pasalic. And because a Portuguese defender touched the ball, Pasalic shouldn't have been called offsides. At least a lot of people are arguing online. And that's why it's so controversial. Now trust me, I know what you guys are going to type in the comments. Because yes, typically if a defender touches the ball, you're automatically onside. That's real, that's the rule, and that's mostly why the goal looked so clean. Because according to IFAB Law 11, a player in an offside position becomes onside again if they receive the ball from an opponent who deliberately plays it. However, for a teammate's touch, the rules work completely differently. A player's offside position is judged at the moment the ball is played or touched by a teammate. So for this, the moment that Matanovic touched the ball, Pasalic was already immediately deemed offside. But the defender's touch only resets offsides if it's a deliberate play. And the referees ruled that Veiga wasn't controlling the ball. In fact, dude was staring at the ground and probably wasn't even aware of where the ball was, so his touch didn't count. Because Veiga wasn't controlling the ball or really aware of where it was, he was not deliberately trying to play it. But truly, the main thing that was looked at in the decision that ultimately ruled it as offsides was the fact that Croatia's number 20, Igor Matanovic, got a slight flick on the ball. The goal was then overturned. Now, some people will say that the touch detected by FIFA sensors is rigged, and honestly, it may or may not be. Who knows? That's really for you guys to decide. And the craziest thing is that this might not even be the most controversial match of the entire tournament, because Argentina versus Egypt might have just taken that spot. Because honestly,
bro, that was super complicated. I'm not gonna cap. What do you mean that's not the most controversial thing? Like, they're talking about he might not have touched it, his hair touched it, and they feel like that's the reason why it's offside. Like, what?
This tournament has been so crazy that anything can happen and any team can really win. And if you make the right World Cup predictions, you just might hit big. Bigger than even Flo Balogun getting you off that ridiculous big. Referees might hit big. Backbone is cup only comes. Oh, every VAR decision was the biggest controversy of the entire match. Even if you strip away that ending, that entire match was an absolute roller coaster. And eventually, even Perisic opened the scoring in the 53rd minute. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, Portugal actually decides to push the ball forward. It didn't even have to be some sort of complicated play. They would just launch the ball into the opposition box, and next thing you know, Cristiano Ronaldo made a run, masterfully controlled and putting in the wasn't as controversially as he don't bookie Iron Coaster. And eventually, they would just launch the ball into the opposition box, and next thing you know, Cristiano Ronaldo made a run, masterfully controlled that high ball, and put it into the back of the net. The entire stadium roared, and even Ronaldo himself thought that he answered back almost immediately. But really, he hadn't. What looked like an incredible first knockout stage goal was ruled offsides. And that really was the beginning of this entire VAR show. Portugal would win a corner in the 60th minute, still trying to chase that equalizer. And as the corner comes through, Renato Veiga, the closest player to the ball, gets taken down right as he tries to go for it. VAR would review it and confirm that Croatia's Vlasic pulled him down, awarding Portugal a penalty which Cristiano Ronaldo would convert as he would officially score the equalizing goal. Honestly, it's easy to see why this is controversial. First of all, Renato Veiga shouldn't have gone down so easily, and many will argue that he was flopping and it wasn't a foul. However, unfortunately, only one of those statements is true. Sure, you can argue that there were other times in the World Cup where this happened, but the teams weren't awarded a penalty, most notably for Germany. However, this one was objectively a foul, and that is because of three main factors. Firstly, Renato Veiga gets hit on the face, secondly, he gets dragged down, and lastly, his legs also made contact with Nikola Vlasic. And it was the combination of these three fouls that would eventually give VAR enough to warrant a penalty. So yes, both things can be true. Veiga really sold that fall, but also he did genuinely get fouled multiple times. And even in the 80th minute, just as Peter Sucic looked like he had scored an equalizing goal, VAR stepped in and once again confirmed that he was indeed offside. Now, I thought that this was the wildest and most controversial match of the tournament by far. That was until I saw Egypt versus Argentina. Because 5 days after Vardy—
Bro, what's going on with Argentina though? Like, bro, I used to hear Messi is a GOAT and stuff, and I'm still hearing he's a GOAT. But like, what's going on with this? Why Argentina moving like this?
His goal got wiped off the board. VAR did it again, this time to Egypt. After a 1-0 lead, Egyptian midfielder Mustafa Zico scored what looked like a clean breakaway goal to make it 2-0. However, VAR would step in, going back all the way to the other side of the pitch, determining that Egypt's Marwan Atiyah had fouled Argentina's Lisandro Martinez, stepping on his foot as Egypt regained possession and were able to build up all the way to the midfield, then to Argentina's third, overall ruling that the goal would be disallowed. Now this was a crucial decision, as Argentina would have an insane comeback scoring 3 goals in 20 minutes, ultimately ending the match 3-2. What made things so controversial, not just from a fan standpoint, was that even some commentators were calling it out in real time. Guys like Fox Sports' Rob Green saying live on air that that foul was too far from goal and shouldn't be within VAR's reach at all.
100 yards away, someone stepping on someone's toe is not why VAR was brought into the game. It's reaching far beyond the powers that it should have. The referee saw the tackle, decided not to give it.
Even Mark Clattenburg, commentator and former FIFA referee, would go on to say that he didn't think it was a foul at all, arguing that this tournament's referees had been letting similar or worse physical challenges go all match, making this specific call feel selectively enforced. Well, personally for me, was it a foul? Yeah, it was. But what makes it crazy is that there were worse fouls that were not called at all. Mo Salah getting hacked earlier in the match around the box was not called at all, and it as well was a foul, a much harder one. And a lot of fans are bringing up Argentina's goal against Algeria, because something extremely similar quite literally happened that match. However, there was no VAR review even considered, because Mac Allister would foul Austria's number 4, Xaver Schlager, from behind as Argentina regains possession, eventually building the ball up the pitch for Messi to score a goal. If you agree that Lisandro Martinez got fouled, you definitely have to agree that Schlager got fouled as well. Interestingly enough, I even saw this comment regarding that video on that no-call foul by Mac Allister. This guy said, "Every small action can be counted as a foul. Stopping every minute just means you're ruining the spirit of the game." And after that Egypt match, a lot of people are roasting his logic in the comments. And hey, he's right. Basically, players foul one another all the time. especially with things like holding and jersey grabbing. So while some people will argue that it wasn't a foul, hey, I'll agree that it was. But when you see fouls like this happening but there aren't any calls for it, you can't blame fans for noticing the one-sidedness and calling it out. But regardless, that match was absolute cinema. And I'm not trying to be biased here. Even earlier on in the match, Tagliafico got absolutely fouled by an Egyptian defender. And this definitely was a deserved penalty. Despite the disallowed goal, however, Mustafa Zico would once more come in and score. But just as a lot of fans are saying that this match was rigged, while I do think that VAR review was particularly suspicious, I do also think that Egypt got extremely carried away. Instead of focusing on holding the lead, they would poorly mark Cuti Romero and let him score Argentina's opening goal. And just a few minutes later, their defense would break down in absolute chaos, allowing Messi to score an equalizing goal in the 83rd minute. And worst of all, they couldn't even defend for more than 10 minutes, because just 2 minutes into extra time, Egypt would leave their box wide open for Enzo Fernandez to get an easy header and score the game-winning goal. Credit where credit is due. The way that Argentina came back was nothing short of amazing. And this might just be the most insane World Cup match so far. Personally, it seemed like Egypt just celebrated too early. And that's what's so crazy about football, because a 2-0 lead can disappear just like that within the span of 15 minutes. But still, a lot of Croatian and Egyptian fans are understandably angry at all the VAR and referee decisions. But really, I think the biggest concern for most neutral fans is the consistency. Referees are a lot more consistent for some teams than others, and you might just have to wonder if there really is just some agenda behind it. This is a FIFA thing and profits overall. For example, Flo Balogun's red card being overturned just because Trump asked Infantino to, quote, look into it. You can't tell me there was at least a profit-making decision over this. Just as with Croatia versus Portugal, FIFA definitely benefits a lot more, with a team that has a lot more fans like Portugal going through compared to Croatia. The same thing definitely applies to Argentina over Cabo Verde and Egypt, because when you see the referee ignore these fouls, but rewind all the way to the other side of the pitch to look at a step on the toe is crazy. And yes, just so you understand, I'm agreeing that this was a foul, just that there were a lot more crucial and worse ones that were ignored. But I am truly curious to see what you guys think. Which decision was a bigger robbery, Croatia or Egypt? I definitely want to see your takes in the comments below.
To be honest, I'm not sure. I'm leaning more to Croatia's side because I feel like Egypt, the team, like when the momentum shifts, the team won at the end. Like, you feel me? Argentina's had like better tactics towards the end of the game. I was watching this live. You feel me? I don't know too much about the game. Y'all could tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Argentina towards the end were just like the better team. But maybe if they had that goal early on, Argentina would have never had the confidence to, like, feel me, play that good at the end. So I'm not sure, but these guys are looking very corrupt. But it's really the most corrupt World Cup, bro. Because I ain't gonna lie, I was hearing some mafia stuff, bro. People being held at gunpoint and being told to lose, throw matches and stuff. So, hey, man, I'm not sure if this is the most corrupt, but the president calling in and saying, yo, you better unsuspend this guy is pretty crazy. I'll see you on the next video.